Good evening. First tonight, the recession we simply couldn't avoid. We are in the worst financial hole many Australians have ever seen, with the biggest fall in GDP in our history.
Australia is closer to a recession than most people realise. Interest rates are at decade highs. Household debt is stretched to the limit. Consumer spending is slowing. Business failures are rising. And when recession finally hits, it won't hit everywhere equally. Some cities will absorb the shock. Others will break under it. History shows this clearly. Every downturn exposes the weakest links first. The cities built on fragile industries, inflated housing markets, and shallow job pools. When the pressure comes, these places don't just struggle, they unravel. Tonight, we're revealing the 10 Australian cities most at risk of economic collapse, based on employment concentration, housing vulnerability, population trends, and past recession behaviour. This isn't about panic, it's about preparation. Because if you live in one of these cities, own property there, or rely on its economy, what happens next could directly affect your job, your home, and your future. No one. Cairns, Queensland. Cairns sits at the very top of Australia's recession risk list for one simple reason: extreme tourism dependence. More than half of Cairns' local economy relies directly or indirectly on tourism. Hotels, tour operators, restaurants, transport services all depend on discretionary spending. And discretionary spending is the first thing to disappear in a recession. When households tighten budgets, holidays are cancelled immediately. That creates instant job losses. Unlike manufacturing or healthcare, tourism jobs cannot be preserved when demand vanishes. Cairns also suffers from higher than average unemployment, even in good times, heavy reliance on casual and seasonal work, lower median incomes relative to housing prices. When recession hits, Cairns doesn't decline slowly. It falls sharply, with unemployment capable of doubling within months. Note 2. Townsville, Queensland. Townsville may be even more exposed. The city already carries one of the highest unemployment rates among major Australian cities. Youth unemployment is particularly severe, reflecting a lack of diverse career pathways. Townsville's economy relies heavily on mining services, port operations, defence employment. While defense provides some stability, mining services are extremely cyclical. When commodity demand drops, projects are delayed or cancelled almost overnight. Townsville has experienced repeated housing corrections in the past. Population growth remains weak compared to other Queensland cities, meaning people leave during downturns and don't rush back. In a recession scenario, Townsville faces rising unemployment from an already elevated base, housing price weakness, limited economic diversification. This combination places it firmly among the first cities to feel recession pain. 3. Darwin, Northern Territory. Darwin is Australia's boom-bust capital. Its economy is heavily tied to large resource and construction projects. When those projects finish, workers leave immediately. Population drops. Housing demand collapses. Darwin has already experienced housing price falls exceeding 30% in previous downturns. Actual population decline, not just slower growth. Long recovery periods after each bust. The city's isolation and high cost of living make downturns even harder to endure. When jobs disappear, people don't wait around. They leave. With interest rates much higher than in previous cycles, the next bust could be more damaging than the last. Florida, Hobart, Tasmania. Hobart's risk isn't industry, it's housing. Between 2016 and 2021, Hobart experienced one of the fastest property booms in Australian history, with prices rising nearly 90%, but wages never caught up. This created a dangerous imbalance. High mortgages, lower incomes, limited job diversity. As fixed-rate loans expire, many households are seeing repayments jump by hundreds of dollars per month. In a recession, that stress quickly turns into forced sales. Hobart's economy is small and concentrated in tourism, government, and education, sectors that don't absorb mass job losses easily. A recession could trigger a sharp housing correction that wipes out years of gains. No. 5. Geelong, Victoria. Geelong's vulnerability comes from unfinished economic transition. The collapse of manufacturing, Ford, Alcoa, automotive supply chains, removed thousands of stable middle-income jobs. While healthcare and education are growing, they haven't fully replaced what was lost. Geelong's housing market surged largely because of spillover demand from Melbourne. If Melbourne weakens, that demand disappears instantly. Geelong risks being hit from both sides. Rising local unemployment. Fair på sätten igen, Kordesiwine. Falling external housing demand. That's a dangerous combination during recession. No 6. Gold Coast, Queensland. The Gold Coast looks strong on the surface, but beneath it lies fragility. Its economy depends on tourism, hospitality, retail, construction, all discretionary sectors. The city also has a high proportion of investor-owned apartments. When interest rates rise and rental yields fall, investors rush for the exits. In a recession, tourism drops, construction stalls, investors sell, unemployment spikes. The Gold Coast has experienced this cycle before, and recovery is never quick. No 7. Launceston, Tasmania. Launceston's biggest weakness is scale. Small population, limited industries, few alternative employers. When one major employer struggles, the whole city feels it. Population decline during downturns creates a vicious cycle. Fewer people, fewer jobs, lower demand. Housing prices rose sharply during the pandemic, without matching income growth. That gap creates vulnerability when conditions deteriorate. Launceston lacks the depth to absorb a major economic shock. No 8. Wollongong, New South Wales. Wollongong is heavily reliant on BlueScope steel. Steel manufacturing is deeply cyclical. When construction and manufacturing slow, steel demand collapses. Job losses ripple through the entire region. Wollongong's housing market also depends on Sydney buyers. In a recession, Sydney demand weakens, hitting Wollongong property from the outside while jobs disappear locally. Few cities face such dual exposure. No 9. Newcastle, New South Wales. Newcastle's vulnerability is structural and long-term. The city remains deeply tied to coal exports and mining logistics. Coal demand is declining globally, and recession accelerates that decline. Newcastle has been here before. The closure of BHP Steel in 1999 devastated the local economy for years. While renewable energy investment is growing, it hasn't yet replaced coal employment at scale. Newcastle also depends on Sydney spillover demand for housing. A Sydney downturn directly impacts Newcastle prices. When recession hits, Newcastle faces falling coal demand, job losses, housing pressure, slow recovery. No 10. Adelaide, South Australia. Adelaide ranks number 1 not because it's dramatic, but because it's fragile. The city lost its automotive industry. Tens of thousands of stable jobs vanished. Many were never replaced. South Australia consistently records higher unemployment than the national average. Adelaide carries most of that burden. Unlike Sydney or Melbourne, Adelaide lacks and strong population growth, large immigration inflows, deep economic diversification. Housing is affordable, but affordability doesn't protect against falling demand. In recession, Adelaide tends to lose jobs faster, recover slower, experience prolonged weakness. That makes it Australia's most vulnerable major city when the economy turns. What happens next, and why this recession is different? This recession, if it comes, won't look like the last 3. Household debt is far higher. Interest rates can't fall as much. Government stimulus is limited. China may not bail Australia out. That means weak cities will suffer longer. These 10 cities are not doomed, but they are exposed. And exposure determines impact. Understanding this isn't about fear. It's about making informed decisions before the economy makes them for you.